You're listening to Mornings with Eric and Brigitte here on Moody Radio 89.3.
Young people have a lot of questions, but when it comes to questions of, am I a boy or a girl, and how do I live my life in this body if I feel confused about it? These are some of the most difficult questions a parent can get, Eric.
Yeah, and again, we've been talking about who has authority in your life. Where did we come from? And if there is a maker, and we believe that, God spoke, Jesus spoke, and all of this was created, so he must have authority then. That leads us down to some good roads. But if there's misunderstanding or confusion there, that leads us into some darker places. And so these conversations, I think, are really molding together in a way that's very important for us.
Dr. Julie Hamilton, you are hearing, obviously, so many younger and younger people asking questions, even as early as, how early young people can start having these questions of, am I a boy? Am I a girl? Am I in the wrong body? How early?
Yes. For many children, it does start early, even as early as 3 years old for some children. Yes.
And I honestly, one of the first questions somebody might ask is why? Why would a little boy at 3 years old think he is something else other than what he was created to be?
Yes, for some children, especially the ones that do start that young, there are a number of things that are going on in the child's life that are leading him to feel that confusion. And it can be his own personality, his perceptions of what he's seeing and observing around him. It can have to do with relationships, family dynamics. There's so many different factors that can create genuine confusion in the lives of young children. And then I think there's some children that it doesn't start that young, it starts later, and that's a whole different set of factors that can cause the older children to suddenly say that they're transgender or having gender dysphoria.
As a young child, though, I was confused about a lot of things. I didn't like broccoli then. It's just you're growing, you're learning, you're changing in a lot of different areas, but a lot of that comes through parents and people around me then, teaching me and training me and, helping me through processes. And that's where a lot of the problems are really coming in when we're talking about gender dysphoria, isn't it?
Yes, I think some of the answers that are currently being offered are not so helpful.
Right.
So in other words, I think there has been this mindset that if a little boy thinks he's a girl, go ahead and let him become a girl. And that's a lack of giving good input and guidance and direction and parenting. But then also I would say there are, for some children, especially the ones where it starts so young, there are some deeper issues that often have to be resolved. And so it may not be enough to just try to teach him, yes, you're a girl, but to actually get to the bottom of what some of those deeper issues are. That is important.
And that's when you need help.
Yes,
that's something that a parent probably doesn't have the ability to really deal with, I would think.
Right. You may need to take a few extra steps in getting help, like you're saying. Yes.
Yeah. And something that's different now in the current culture that we live in is that a young person, let's say 11, 12, 13, just starting puberty, maybe having some questions about who they are and their body. Unfortunately, there are some who would encourage them in their confused state instead of getting them some solid help. I think that's the difference, right? Is the help that's available isn't always actually bringing them aid.
That's right. Yes. In fact, it has been sort of like in the last several years, just this idea has been promoted that the best help is to just help them try to become the opposite sex, which is so tragic because we know they can never really be the opposite sex. We are male or female at the cellular level. And so that help has been not helpful. And I think, thankfully, there are countries beyond the United States that are realizing that solution was not a solution and that it has been detrimental to children. So people are starting to wake up, but not everybody then knows actually how to help them. Mm-hmm. And so that's been a little bit of a gap that I've seen.
Is that where your video series comes in? How do we help a young person that's dealing with this gender dysphoria?
Yes, exactly. Yes, I saw that there was this gap where we realized that, encouraging a child to just try to be the opposite sex is not the answer. But many counselors, many professionals really aren't equipped to help these children in an effective way. They don't a lot of professionals and parents don't fully understand what's going on under the surface and what these children need and how to help them. So I was able to create a video that's a training video to equip both professionals and parents to understand gender dysphoria and help gender dysphoric children and teenagers.
What are some of the topics that are then covered within those framework that you have listed there?
Yes. Okay. So the video is, by the way, it's free to watch online, completely free to watch online. It's broken up into 3 parts. So the first part covers the contributing factors. So it explains what some of the things are that cause a 3-year-old to feel like he's a girl, or the other type of the category of the older teenagers who suddenly say that they are transgender when they really had no history. So it talks about what contributes to each, the early onset and the older teenagers in feeling this way. That's part 1, contributing factors. Part 2 is counseling. What do we then do in counseling? How do professionals help? How can parents help? What can we do for these children? And then the third part brings in a Christian worldview. And in the video, we have both experts that are 2 experts, actually 2 world-renowned experts talking about gender dysphoria. And then we also have testimonies of individuals. So in the final section, you get to hear them share. They talk in all 3 sections, but in the final part, they share how God transformed their lives. So those are kind of the 3 main parts that we have.
Dr. Julie Hamilton is in studio with us. GenderIdentity101.com is where you can find this free video that's so helpful if this is an issue you or someone you love is grappling with. Why is this important to you, Julie?
Yes, it's important because what I see is that there's so much confusion that these children are experiencing, and the world's answers have been very detrimental to them. And then the professionals and often parents as well don't know what to do. And so I'm a therapist and I work with a wide variety of issues. But when it comes to this issue, I've specialized in understanding gender identity and educating on it for many years. And when it comes to this issue, I'm just looking around and seeing a lot of people are not equipped to help. And I just felt like we've really got to equip professionals and parents to understand this. Even, not only counselors, but pediatricians, family physicians, teachers, youth pastors. It's so important that they understand, because most of us realize that the answers the world is offering are not effective answers. But then many don't have other answers to give. And so and what I've known for so many years as I've educated on this topic for so long is that there are answers. So I wanted to make them available so that more people would understand and be able to help this population.
All right, give help to a parent. They're at home today, getting dinner ready. Son walks in the door and says, I think, or I question, or whatever the statement is, that they are confused. Okay, tell that parent, how do I not freak out? And what do I do to kind of encourage or help or motivate or whatever the word would be there, that child? What does the parent do besides freaking out?
Yes, good question. I love the verse in James 1:19 that says, be slow to speak, quick to listen, and slow to becoming angry. So that's the first thing I always encourage parents when kids drop a bombshell, to not say anything and not react emotionally, but listen. Ask questions. Let me understand. Let me understand this. Tell me more. What's causing you to feel this way? What are you thinking? So to really listen and ask questions and not be emotionally reactive. I think that verse is the perfect guide for us in how to start out when someone shares something difficult. And then I would say, of course, be empathetic, reassure them of your love. God's love for us is unconditional, and a parent's love for their children should also be unconditional. So you let them know nothing will ever change my love. I love you. We're going to get through this. I can help you. And then get equipped. Certainly, I would watch the video and learn as much as you can about this. In some cases, professional help may be needed. And depending on the age of the child, there may be different needs. So if it's a teenager, what we're seeing a lot right now is teenagers who did not have a history of gender confusion, and they're coming and saying this. And for some of these kids, there's a lot of cultural influence going on. And I'm talking about the older ones who did not have a history of gender confusion. So I think other little steps parents can take, certainly guarding the input, guarding the time that children are spending online, what they're watching, what they're listening to, really being tuned in and attentive. And then, of course, the relationship, making sure there's a strong parent-child bond.
You said get help. That in itself is tricky. How do I find that person that's not going to cause this spiral to go farther down the hole?
Yes, that is a very good question, definitely. And I think we always need to be careful who we're pointing our children to. So you want to find someone that is a Christian first and foremost and aligned with your values. Christian, not just in name, but really believes according to God's word and practices their counseling according to God's word. And then there are resources on the Gender Identity 101 website. There are some other organizations that are you can link to that have different resources across the country. So definitely finding someone who is like-minded and comes from a biblical worldview is going to be so important, especially with this issue.
But there is hope, isn't there?
Yes, there absolutely is. And that's the good news, is that no matter how difficult the problems are that we're facing or that our children are facing, God offers transformation, and God is the God of transformation, and change is always possible. So I think the key is also that I didn't mention that for parents, prayer. Prayer is powerful.
Yeah. Okay, you say there's hope. You say transformation is possible. Can you give me an example of that?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, in this video, there are 7 individuals that share their story of experiencing gender dysphoria in their childhood. And each of them found help and healing. And for each of the ones that are in this video, it was through their relationship with the Lord. It was God bringing people in their lives that would meet the needs that were unmet. It was God revealing things, speaking to them through his word. In fact, there are one of the stories on that video is Laura Perry, and you may have heard of her, but she took so many steps of transitioning. Even in her adulthood, she, was on hormones. She had surgery, hysterectomy, that kind of thing. And then was fully living as a male when God really entered her life and really has done a transformative work. Now she's living fully as a female. She's married to a man. She's sharing the good news of what God has done in her life. And there are many stories like that. So, yes, I do want to say there is hope. There are so many lives who have been changed. And honestly, God is the primary source of that change.
Amen.
One of the things we've heard is if you don't let this happen, you're causing your child to maybe commit suicide, or you're causing them to do something that is going to be very dangerous to them. Talk about that for just a second, because you've heard that quite a bit, I think.
You do. And I think a lot of loving parents are scared by that statement. And for some parents, that is why they have gone along with this idea of letting their child transition, because they've been told if you don't, your child might hurt themselves. And so a couple of things I would say about that is that there is no research that would back up that statement, that if you help a child transition, they will be less suicidal. Now, I will say that some children who are caught up in this type of confusion are fragile. For some of these kids, there are, especially the older ones that come into this just suddenly, there are usually a lot of mental health issues. And so they are vulnerable, but helping them transition has never been proven to be a solution to prevent suicide. In fact, the rates of those who commit suicide after transitioning are very high. So this is not the answer for these children. Getting help and getting to the bottom of it. For the older ones, it's going to be dealing with the mental health issues. That's going to be very important. For the younger ones, it's going to be getting those needs met that haven't been met in right ways and helping to correct the misperceptions that they have about themselves in the world. So really helping them deal with the root issues is what's going to help them, not telling them that they can be the opposite sex when in fact they really can't become the opposite sex.
Is it as easy as starting with a 2-year-old that a boy gets a truck and a girl gets a doll, or is that too simplistic to say that? I mean, what can you do at a very young age to help this child?
Yes. You know what? I would say one of the very first things is the bond that the child has with the same-sex parent. So some boys will naturally begin not wanting to play with trucks and not wanting to identify as male. And for some of them, it goes back to not identifying with their father. Now, that's not necessarily the father's fault. There are many factors. So it could be that the child has a very sensitive temperament and they're misinterpreting things. They might think that the father isn't available or doesn't want to have a relationship. So there might be things going on in the child's own mind that cause them to pull away from the father. But that's a key ingredient for a lot of these children, the ones that start very early on. One of the things children need in order to feel secure in their gender is to have a solid bond with the same-sex parent. So boys need to be bonded with their fathers. Really, between the ages of 2 and 4, you'll see that at its really height where boys want to bond with their father. If that's not happening, then there may need to be some things to correct that. And then girl with her mother. So that's one big factor, I would say, is if you see signs in a child that they're not identifying as the male or female that they are, they may need more solid relationship with the same-sex parent, and then eventually also same-sex peers. So between 5 and about 12, if you're not seeing a little boy if he's playing more with girls than boys, that's a need that's not being met. He needs to be playing with boys in order to feel secure in himself as a male.
And of course, there are many single-parent homes and
Yes.
moms who are saying, the father is not in the picture. What do I do?
Yes, that's a very good question. For the single mom, the first thing I would say is always remember that your boy is a boy and treat him like a boy first. So sometimes single moms kind of might blur those gender distinctions, and you see where. So that's the most important thing is recognize he's a boy, and then look for male role models. Sometimes it's a grandpa, sometimes it's an uncle, a coach, a youth leader. So males that can be in his life, of course, you want to make sure they are safe males. You want to have all the safeguards in place. And then also helping him to have male friends, peers, friends to play with. One of the other ingredients sometimes is those boys are sometimes not into sports, or they might have a hard time bond. The boys that tend towards having gender confusion, some of those boys don't naturally like to do the things other boys like to do. So it's important to find boys that they can relate to, maybe bike riding or playing Legos or doing things that they will be able to bond with other boys. So that's what a single parent can do is arrange play dates, get them connecting with other boys. They've got to have male input in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know people are asking, where can I find more information? All right. We have a link to genderidentity101.com at our website. You can go to ericandbrigitte.org, and you can find that information there, all the different resources, including this video that, again, is for free. So you can watch that. It's extensive. It's quite the documentary there. So you'll have to give yourself a little bit of time to watch it. But there are some other great resources there. Again, just go to ericandbrigitte.org for more information.
There's a lot of confusion in this conversation or in this topic, but it is the truth that sets us free. And Dr. Julie Hamilton is helping to present that to us. Get the link at ericandbrigitte.org.
Today, there is a disciple-making church plant